Testing. Sounds good. Testing. Make sure it sounds good. There we go. All right, Shalom, Israel. Shalom Yahbashim Yahshabrak to the brothers. Shalom Shamar Bashim Yahshai to the sisters. This is the Isupk Israelite School of Universal Practical Knowledge, started out of 1 West 125th Street, Harlem, New York, under Commanding General Yohanan. And we are not affiliated with any other Israelite school. We're here to teach that all so-called blacks, Hispanics, and Native Indians are God's chosen people throughout the Bible. That the oppressor is the devil that the Bible speaks of. Now, today I'm going to be going over something that a lot of our brothers and sisters really need to learn. We really need to learn your true lineage. Now, we teach that we are God's chosen people, but a lot of, I'll focus on Judites real quick. A lot of our so-called black brothers and sisters today love to think that we are African. We love to think that we are Egyptians and Ethiopians and good night Somalians and whatnot because we have dark skin. But the thing is, though, the Bible and history specifies who you are, that you are God's chosen people, that you are the children of Israel. Also, a lot of brothers and sisters in the world, as well as heathens, not that I care too much what heathens think, but love to say that so-called Hispanics and Native Indians are not God's chosen people due to their usual complexion. Not all the time, but a lot of times so-called Hispanics and natives are of a lighter skin tone. So they like to try to use that to keep a division between us. But we're going to be going over the Bible of what your actual lineage is. And I'm going to prove through the Bible and through other books also that you are not African. Blacks and Africans are not the same people. I want to make that very clear. But I don't want to sit here and give out my own personal opinion. No, we're going to go through it throughout the Bible of what your true lineage is. And I'm going to prove that Africans who are Hamites in the Bible are a completely different nation. So with that being said, give everybody a quick second just to tune in. If you haven't already, it would be greatly appreciated if you could please like, share, and subscribe. And with that, we're going to be getting on with the prayers. Before I begin, we're going to be reading out of the book of Genesis, chapter 9, verse 18 through 25 in the Hebrew. As you already know, we go through the first 7 verses in the Hebrew, then we go over it in the English, and then we give the breakdown. Slide here just for a moment. All right. So we're going to be reading out of the book of Genesis, chapter 9, verse 18 to 25. We're going to be talking about the lineage of the Israelites, who are the so-called Black, Hispanics, and Native Indians today, through the Bible. So with that, Amijam, just me up here. Leia Sharala, which means to Israel in the Hebrew. Amadiam upon Yahakwadam, which means to stand and face the east. We're going to get started with the Lord's Prayer. As you already know, sisters, remember to have your heads covered. Brothers, remember to have your heads uncovered. And with that, we're going to begin the Lord's Prayer in the Hebrew. Abanawa, Shabbat Shemayim, Kodash, Haya, Shemka, Yahweh, Malakutka, Taba'ah, Ratazaka, Haya, Aisha, Ba'arataza, Kawa, Haya, Bashamayim, Batananawa, Wakam, Ko, Yawam, Wasalaknawa, Kabawatnawa, Kasalaknawa, Kabawathinawa, Wala'a, Tabayanawa, Banasaiwan, Abal, Habashainawa, Bayan, Rai, Kaya, Laka, Hamalakwath, Wa'ala, Wa'ataparath, Lawalumyum, Aman. Now we're going to go over in the English. Our Father, which art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Yahweh, thy kingdom come, thy will be done, in earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our debts, as we forgive our debtors. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, and the power, and the glory forever, so be it. Hakak, which is the power in the Hebrew. Yahweh, Ba'ashem, Yahushai, Babakasha, Latan Lanawa, Hakak, Hakak, Larapa'ah, Ko, Makala, Wako, Matawa, Hakak, Latahar, Ha, Matazarayim, Hakak, La'akwayim, Hamathim, Hakak, Al, Lakawath, Hatama Allah, Lagarashun, Ba'ashem, Yahushai, for water, Amun. Now this is Hakak, which is the power in the English. Yahweh, in the name of Yahweh Shai, please give us the power to heal all manner of sickness and all manner of disease, the power to cleanse the lepers, the power to raise the dead, the power against unclean spirits, to cast them out in the name of Yahweh Shai. Thank you, so be it. The blessings in the Hebrew. Barakatah Yahweh, wa Yahweh Shai, wa Mayaka Allah, wa Alahayim, wa Tazab Ya'ah, Alawap Yahana, Ha Alawapyam, Ha Saranyam, Ha Patazayoyim, Ha Kayayoyim, Waha Akwathian, Yahweh, Ba'ashem, Yahushai, for water, Aman. Now in the English. Bless you, Yahweh, and Yahweh Shai, and Michael, and the angels, commanding General Yahana, the generals, the captains, the officers, the troopers, and the sisters. Yahweh, in the name of Yahweh Shai, thank you, so be it. Psalms 121 in the Hebrew. Asha'ah, Ayunya, O, Hahoyim, Ma'ayun, Yaba'ah, Izoya, Izoya, Ma'aim, Yahweh, Aisha, Shemayim, Wa'aratazah, Al-Yatan, Lamawat, Wagolka, O, Yanawam, Shemorka, Hana, La'ah, Yanawam, Wala'ah, Yayashun, Shawamar, Yasharala, Yahweh, Shemorka, Yahweh, Tazalka, Al-Yad, Yimyamka, Yawamam, Hashamash, La'ah, Yakaka, Wayarach, Balayallah, Yahweh, Yashamarka, Makal, Rai, Yashamar, Athna Pashka, Yahweh, Yashamar, Taza'afka, Wabawa'afka, Maita, Wa'ai, Awalam. Now Psalms 121 in the English. I will lift up my eyes into the hills. From whence cometh my help? My help cometh from the Lord, which made heaven and earth. He will not suffer thy foot to be moved. He that keepeth thee will not slumber. Behold, he that keepeth Israel shall neither slumber nor sleep. The Lord is thy keeper. The Lord is thy shade upon thy right hand. The sun shall not smite thee by day, nor the moon by night. The Lord shall preserve thee from all evil. He shall preserve thy soul. The Lord shall preserve thy going out and thy coming in, from this time forth and even forevermore. Now, Psalms 83 in the Hebrew. Alahayim, all, Lamaya, Laka, all, Dakarash, wa all, Lashakwat, all, Kaya, Hana, Awyeyika, Yahama, Yawan, Ra'ash, Ail, Amaka, Ya'ayamwa, Sawada, Waita, Datazawa, Ail, Tazapawanyaka, Amarwa, Lakawa, Wanakakidum, Magoya, Wala'a, Yazakar, Shum, Yasharala, Awada, Kaya, Naitazawa, Laba, Yakadwa, Al-Yaka, Baryath, Yakarathwa, Ahoya, Adawam, Wa, Yashama'alim, Mawa'aba, Wahagorium, Gabal, Wa'amawan, Wa'amalak, Palashath, Amyashabia, Tazawar, Gum, Ashawar, Nalawa, Aimum, Hayawa, Zarawai, Labunya, Lawat, Salah, Aisha, Lahum, Kamudyam, Kasaya, Sara'ah, Kayubyan, Wanakal, Koyashwan, Nashamadwa, Bayan, Dara'ah, Hayawa, Dama, Layadama, Shayatamwa, Nada, Yamawa, Kai Rab, because of Abba, because of Bak, because of Zor, Manai, Kal, Nasayakamwa, Ashar, Amarwa, Nayarasha, Lanawa, Af, Naawath, Alahayim, Alahaya, Shayatamwa, Kagogala, Kakwash, Lapunya, Salakia, Rabaka, Kaash, Tabaira, Yaira, Wa, Kalahaba, Dalahat, Harayum, Kun, Daradatma, Wasairaka, Wabasa, Wapafka, Tabahalam, Mala'a, Panyahum, Kwalawan, Waya, Wakwashwa, Shemka, Yahawa, Yabashwa, Waya, Bahawa, Adyaid, Waya, Kaparwa, Waya, Abadwa, Waya, Daiwa, Kaya, Adha, Shemka, Yahawa, Labadka, Ayawan, Alcohol, Harataza. Now in the English, keep not thy silence, O God. Hold not thy peace, and be not still, O God. For lo, thine enemies make atonement, and they that hate thee have lifted up the head. They have taken crafty counsel against thy people, and consulted against thy hidden ones. They have said, come, and let us cut them off from being a nation, that the name of Israel shall be no more in remembrance. For they have consulted together with one consent. They are confederate against thee. The tabernacles of Edom, and the Ishmaelites of Moab, and the Hagarenes, Gabal, and Ammon, and Amalek, the Philistines, with the inhabitants of Tyre. A sword also was joined with them. They have hope in the children of Lot. Salah. Do unto them as unto the Midianites, as to Sisera, as to Jabin, at the brook of Kison, which perished at Endor. They became as dung for the earth. Make their nobles like Ored, and like Zaid. Yea, all their princes, as Zabah, and as Almuna, who said, let us take to ourselves the houses of God in possession. O my God, make them like a will, as the stubble before the wind, as the fire burneth the wood, and as the flame setteth the mountains on fire. So persecute them with thy tempests, and make them afraid with thy storm. Fill their faces with shame, that they may seek thy name. O Lord, let them be confounded and troubled forever. Yea, let them be put to shame and perish, that men may know that thou, whose name alone is Yahweh, art the most high over all the earth. You may be seated. All right, first and foremost, let's give the Most High hand for allowing brothers and sisters to come into this truth under Commanding General Yohana, waking up our brothers and sisters, learning your true lineage, which is going to be the main topic of today. So today, we're going to be going over the book of Genesis, chapter 9, and we're going to be starting at verse 18, going through verses 18 through 25. And we're going to go over a little bit of the history, actually not a little bit, but a lot of the history of who we are as a people. So the book of Genesis, chapter 9, verse 18. All right, so Wayaka Waya, it's like Wayaka Yawa Ba, let's see, no, Kaba Ya Ba A Kayataza A Ya Ma Mawa, so like Mana Katha Ba'ach Shum Waya Path Ma Kaya Abawa Bana Bana'ain Shala Shaw Sha Alaach Bana Wa Na'a Ka'um Laach Napataza Ach Ba'o Ka'a Dataza Waya'o Na'a Awa'ash Ka'a Da'um Ach Waya, bear with me. Wayadataza Bada'um Ka Waya'ash Af Wayashaf Ma'ach Ma'aka Ka Waya'ash Bada Wayaf Ga'o Ba'af Da Wada Ach La Wa Wayada'a Abawa Banataza Na, Ath, Tazada, Wa'ath, Abaya'a, Wayagada, La'ash, La'ashnaya, Aha, Waya, Yawa, Ba'a, Wa, Taza, Waya, Kwa'a, Shum, Waya Pa'af, Af, Kasha'am La'a, Wayash Ya, Taza'al, Shaba'am, Shadacha'am, Waya Baya, Ahada Waya'ath, Wayabasaya, Ath, Tazada, Wath, Abiyaka'am, Wapa, Wayabaka Ka'am, Ayada, Na, Ya'ath, Dataza, Da Ka'ath, Abiya'acham, Kam, La'a, Da'an, Waya Yapa, Quataza, Na'a, Maya Naya, Naya Dataza, Ath, Ashda, Taza, Laya, Banaka, Kwa, Na, Waya'ad. All right. So now we're going to go over Genesis chapter 9. Genesis chapter 9, verse 18 through 25 in the English. So this is the book of Genesis chapter 9, verse 18. And the sons of Noah that went forth of the ark were Shem, Ham, and Japheth. And Ham is the father of Canaan. So Noah had 3 sons, Shem, Ham, and Japheth. Now we're going to be going over why this is very important. These are the 3 sons of Noah, and of them was the whole earth overspread. And Noah began to began to be an husbandman, and he planted a vineyard, and he drank of the wine and was drunken, and he was uncovered within his tent. So Noah got drunk in his tent, and at the time he was naked in his tent. And Ham, the father of Canaan, saw the nakedness of his father and told his 2 brethren without. So he saw his father in the nude, and it was like as if he was kind of mocking his father. And Shem and Japheth took a garment and laid it upon both their shoulders and went backward and covered the nakedness of their father. So they saw that their father, he was a little tipsy. So we got to cover up dad. So they got the garment and they backed up so that they couldn't see their father in his nakedness. So they covered their father and covered the nakedness of their father, and their faces were backward, and they saw not their father's nakedness. Pretty much what I just said. Verse 24. And Noah awoke from his wine and knew what his younger son had done unto him. And he said, Cursed be Canaan, a servant of servants shall he be unto his brethren. So he was upset at his youngest. Like, how dare you do something like that? That's not righteous. So he cursed him. And he said, Blessed be the Lord God of Shem. There's a reason why I'm going over this. Blessed be the Lord God of Shem. What do we go over every class? The God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. But right here in verse 26, it said, And he said, Blessed be the Lord God of Shem. But who's Shem? Shem is Noah's son, right? One of his three sons. Shem, Japheth, and Ham. There's a reason why. And God shall enlarge Japheth, and he shall dwell in the tents of Shem, and Canaan shall be his servant. Now, we're going to be going over the descendants of we're going to be focusing strictly on Ham and Shem, and who are their descendants. So we're actually going to jump down. We're going to go to the book of Genesis, chapter 10. We're going to go to verse 6. Actually, you know what? No, we'll start at verse 1. The book of Genesis, chapter 10, verse 1. Now these are the generations of the sons of Noah, Shem, Ham, and Japheth. And unto them were sons born after the flood. So we're going to go over the lineage, but we're going to focus strictly on Ham and Shem. And we're going to go to verse 6. And the sons of Ham, these are the generations of Ham, Cush and Mizraim, and Phut and Canaan. And the sons of Cush, Seba and Havilah, and Sabta and Ramah, and Sabteca, and the sons of Ramah, Sheba and Dedan. And Cush begat Nimrod, and he began to be a mighty one in the earth. He was a mighty hunter before the Lord. Wherefore it is said, even as Nimrod the mighty hunter before the Lord. And the beginning of his kingdom was Babel and Erech and Akkad and Calneh in the land of Shinar. Out of that land went forth Ashur and builded Nineveh and the city of Rehoboth and Calah. So we're going over the descendants, right? So it keeps going. Verse 12. And resting between Nineveh and Calah, the same is a great city. And Mizraim begat Ladim and Anamim and Lahabim and Naphtahim. So it keeps going. So these are the descendants of Ham. Now, we're going to talk about Shem and the importance of Shem. We're going to go down to verse 20. So it says, These are the sons of Ham after their families, after their tongues in their countries, and in the nations. Unto Shem, also the father of all the children of Eber, the brother of Japheth the elder, even to him were children born. The children of Shem, Elam, and Ashur, are Foxed, Lud, and Aram, and the children of Aram, Uz, and Hul, and Gether, and Mash, and Arphaxad begat Salah, and Salah begat Eber. And unto Eber were born two sons. The name of one was Peleg, from in his days was the earth divided, and his brother name was Joktan. So It keeps going. It goes on for a while. We'll read to verse 32. And Joktan began Almadad and Shalef and Hazar Maveth and Jerah and Hadaram and Uzal and Diklah and Obal and Abimael and Sheba and Aphor and Hevelah and Jabad. All these were the sons of Joktan. So we're going over the lineage, right? And their dwellings was from Mesha, and thou goest unto Sephar, a mount of the east. These are the sons of Shem, after the families, after their tongues, and their lands, after their nations. These are the families of the sons of Noah, after their generations and their nations. And by these were the nations divided in the earth after the flood. Now, why is Shem important? Why is Shem important? Shalom, Akwathi, what's going on? So why is Shem important? Why are we going over this? Now, in the Bible, it says that, the covenant was given to Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. But we're talking about Shem. I haven't heard anything about Abraham, Isaac, or Jacob. But we read in the book of Genesis, chapter 9, verse 26, it says, matter of fact, I'm going to go over it one more time. Verse 26, it says, and he said, blessed be the Lord God of Shem, and Canaan shall be his servant. So the thing is, the generations continue. Now, we're going to go to the book of Genesis, chapter 11. And we're going to start at verse 10. These are the generations of Shem. We're going over Shem again. And Shem was 100 years old and begat Arphaxad 2 years after the flood. And Shem lived after he begat Arphaxad 500 years and begat sons and daughters. So the lineage continues. So we're actually, we'll start from there. And Arphaxad lived 5 and 30 years and begat Salah. And Arphaxad lived after he begat Salah 403 years and begat sons and daughters. And Salah lived 30 years and begat Eber. And Salah lived after he begat Eber 403 years and begat sons and daughters. Now we're going to go over Eber. Verse 16. And Eber lived 4 and 30 years and begat Peleg. Verse 17. And Eber lived after he begat Peleg 430 years and begat sons and daughters. So it just keeps continuing, right? Keeps continuing the lineage. Now we're going to skip down to verse 24, the book of Genesis, chapter 11, verse 24. And Nahor lived 9 and 20 years and begat Terah. And Nahor lived after he begat Terah and 119 years and begat sons and daughters. And this is verse 26. And Terah lived 70 years and begat Abram. This is why Shem is important. This is why knowing your lineage is important, because who is Abram? Abram, whose name later got changed to Abraham. He had a wife named Sarai, whose name was changed to Sarah later on. This is the lineage of Abram. Because Abram just didn't appear out of thin air. He had mothers and fathers and grandfathers and whatnot too. That's why the Lord said in the book of Genesis, chapter 9, verse 26, blessed be the Lord God of Shem, because Abram, or Abraham as you would know him, came from Shem. Ham was his brother. Ham did not come from Shem. That's why it's important to know where Abram or Abraham came from. Now, I was going over a little bit earlier about how so-called blacks today, they love to think that we are Egyptians, right? We love to think that we're Africans, but I'm going to go over a few things in the Bible real quick to prove to you furthermore that you are not African. So I'm going to be going to I'm going to be going over two things. We're going to be going over the book of Exodus, chapter 11, verse 7. And then I'm going to be going over the definition of who is Ham according to the Zondervan Bible Dictionary. So we're going to go over the book of Exodus, chapter 11, verse 7. But against any of the children of Israel shall not a dog move his tongue against man or beast, that ye may know how that the Lord doth put a difference between the Egyptians and Israel. Who are the Egyptians? Who is Israel? Well, I can tell you right now, before I get into the context of it, Egyptians and Israel are different. Shalom, Lord Christ, Adawan. Israel and Egyptians were different. For those of y'all who don't know, just a quick, brief recap of what happened in Egypt. The Lord sent Moses, who was from the tribe of Levi, who are the so-called Haitians today, and his brother Aaron to get us up out of captivity because the Egyptians had us in captivity. Egypt actually means bondage. Now, at this time, Pharaoh, who was an Egyptian, was, he was no different than the oppressor today. He was just one of the oppressors that we had in the past. Cocky, thinking that he is above everything, thinking that he is God. That sounds very similar to how Esau is today. He thinks that he is God. You get my point? But the thing was, the Lord wanted us up out of there, right? So he sent Moses and Aaron down there to get us up out of captivity. Pharaoh didn't want to let us go. And the Lord plagued Egypt with a lot of things, with famine, with pestilence. He turned the waters to blood, like all the waters. Like imagine taking a cup, right? And you just poured yourself a glass of water. You about to drink it and boom, it was just blood. Sounds crazy, right? But that's what the Lord did. Locusts, flies, swarms of that, frogs, all right, boils. There were boils all over everybody. I don't know if anybody's ever seen a boil. It is horrendous and it looks extremely painful. I never had one, thank the Lord, but it looks very painful. The Lord slowly just destroyed Egypt because Pharaoh did not want to give up the Israelites. Now, that's just one indication of showing that Egyptians and Israel are not the same. Now, this is the confusion with a lot of so-called blacks today, especially with Judites. We love to sit here and believe that we are Egyptians because we trace our history back to Egypt. We think, oh yeah, we were kings and queens back then. No, you were ruled over a heathen nation that had kings and queens. And I'm going to prove it even more. So now, the Lord just said, I'm going to read it one more time in the book of Exodus chapter 11, verse 7. It says, but against any of the children of Israel shall not a dog move his tongue against man or beast, that ye may know how that the Lord doth put a difference between the Egyptians and Israel. Just an indication showing that there is a difference between us. So now, I'm going to go into the Zondervans, Zondervan's Bible Dictionary, and we're going to read about Ham. So this is Ham in the Zondervan's Bible Dictionary, the youngest son of Noah, which we read earlier, born probably about 96 years after the flood, one of 8 persons to live through the flood. This is the banger right here. He became the progenitor of the dark races, but not the Negroes, but the Egyptians, the Ethiopians, the Libyans, and Canaanites. That's why it says that he's the father of Canaan. But it also says the Egyptians are African. Ethiopians are African. The Canaanites, Ham is an African, a so-called African today. They had us in captivity. A lot of people like to say that blacks sold blacks into slavery. No. Egyptian Africans sold us into slavery. We just read in the Zondervan's Bible Dictionary that he's the progenitor of the dark races, meaning, yes, we get it. Like for myself, I'm a typical Judah. I got, the hair, dark skin, all that stuff, right? So it's very easy to look at an African and think the same thing. Like, oh, they got dark skin. We got dark skin. We have an afro. I don't really want to compare my hair to an African because Africans do not upkeep their hair the way that Israel does, okay? Because they're a heathen nation. But you can see the similarities off of physical appearance. The thing is, the Bible is telling you, not just Bible, but the dictionary itself is telling you that you are not African. If you are a so-called black man or woman, you are not an African. They are a heathen nation. And first and foremost, I don't even understand why you would want to be an African in the first place. Have you seen what Africans actually do? Africans are disgusting, man. And that's not an opinion, that's a fact. Africans are absolutely disgusting, okay? The things that they do, first and foremost, they bathe, and you don't got to believe me. You can go on YouTube, you can go on Google and look it up for yourself. They bathe in animal manure and pee. Like there's videos of them. Like there was a video of, it was a cow, and it was literally going to the bathroom, and some Hamite just walks up behind it, puts its hands all in the urine, starts wiping his face with it, rubbing his hair with it, all that stuff. And I'm just sitting here like, this is disgusting. That's a heathen nation, okay? So if you want to sit here and claim that you African, oh, by all means, be my guest, okay? That's the nation you want to be with. And also, Africans, if this is even, you could even look at it today, this is even further indication that Africans and black people are not the same. If Africans and black people were the same people, don't you think that they would be going out of their way to, oh, I don't know, get us out of captivity? No, they don't want to because they don't care. Another big thing to know about that, for everybody out there who, it's kind of irrelevant now, but I still see a lot of Judites out there that love to praise Barack Obama. Barack Obama is not a Judite. Barack Obama is not an Israelite. Barack Obama is a Hamite. His father is Kenyan. He is an African. He actually is an African American. You get my point? We are not African Americans. No, they love the oppressor loves to sit here and say that, oh, y'all came from Africa, and they trace your lineage all the way back to slavery, but they never tell you who you were before you were a slave. It's because they want to keep you a slave. If you based your entire existence of, yep, my ancestors were slaves, that's it. We were nothing more than that. I mean, there's speculation that we were kings and queens before them, but we really don't have any proof of that. That's all you're going to think of yourself. They cut off your entire lineage. Slavery is not black history. Slavery interrupted black history. You get my point? They're not us. A further indication of that, Africans don't like us. And when I say Africans, I know some people are like, oh, well, I got an African friend. No. I'm talking about like Africans, like from Africa, not the ones that were westernized. They don't like us. You want to know a nickname they call us? Little fun fact for you, it's called kata. You know what kata is? It's short for cotton picker, because they made fun of us for picking the white man's cotton. They call us slaves. You get my point? A heathen nation that bathes in cow manure makes fun of us. You want to know why? Because they're a heathen nation. We're not the same people, okay? Now, here's the other thing. Let's see. Let's go to, I guess we can do that. No, actually, no. We're going to go to Genesis. Yeah, we'll do that. We'll go to Genesis chapter 11, verse 11. Now, we talk a lot about Jacob, right? Jacob, who is Jacob? You can go to Genesis chapter 35, verse 10, and it talks about how the Lord changed his name from Jacob onto Israel. Israel was a man. That's why we say Israelite. The ite is just child of or son of, right? We are Israelites. We are the sons and daughters of Jacob, right? Now, it's very important to know these things. Actually, 26. Well, actually, you know what? Actually, no. We'll go to Deuteronomy. Salagia, I got a lot of notes. We'll go to Deuteronomy chapter 28, verse 7. The book of Deuteronomy chapter 28, verse 7. This one, a lot of y'all probably already heard already, but we're just going to do a quick little recap. Further indication that we are not the same people, right? So this is the book of Deuteronomy chapter 28, verse 7. The Lord shall cause thine enemies that rise up against thee to be smitten before thy face. They shall come out against thee one way and flee before thee 7 ways. Actually, yeah. So this talks about 7 ways, right? How many continents are there? There's 7 continents, right? We're scattered. We're scattered all over the place. Africans are not really scattered. You could find them in other parts of the world or whatever, but most of the time they really stay in Africa. That's where they stay, right? But even further indication of that, we're actually going to go to the book of Ezekiel. The book of Ezekiel, chapter 36. Go to the book of Ezekiel, chapter 36, verse 19. So it's the book of Ezekiel, chapter 36, verse 19. And I scattered them among the heathen, and they were dispersed through the countries according to their way and according to their doing, as I judged them. And when they entered into the heathen, whether they went, they profaned my holy name. When they said to them, these are the people of the Lord. We are God's chosen people. We're scattered all over the world. It's not just North America. It's South America. We're in Europe, believe it or not. There's some people out in Australia, Jamaica, Cuba, Mexico. We're all over the place. The Lord scattered us, right, onto these heathen nations, giving even further indication that we are not the same as them. Okay? Now, another thing that I wanted to go over. Salagia, just one moment. Talk a little bit more, because another thing that a lot of people try to argue, this is the big one. It's very easy to say that so-called blacks are God's chosen people, right? You can read about Revelation 1:14 through 16, and where it talks about the description of Christ. You can go through the lineage of Christ, that he's a Judite, all these things, right? His hair was white like wool. His skin was like onto fine brass. Brass is a metal, for those of y'all who don't know. And it says it was comparing to that of a furnace. So when you take brass and you put it to a furnace, what happens? It gets darker, dark skin, right? But a lot of people, what they don't know is that so-called Hispanics and Native Indians are God's chosen people also. But they don't like to say that. They like to say that our brothers and sisters are Spaniard. There's a lot of Hispanics out there who love to sit here and go over their Spaniard heritage. You're not Spaniard. You're not Spaniard. I'm going to tell you that right now. Okay? And we're going to be going over a little bit about that, right? So we're going to be talking about the sons of Jacob. So we're going to be going over Genesis chapter 35, verse 23. If I'm moving too fast, please put in the comments. Just let me know. So this is the book of Genesis chapter 35, verse 23. Now, before I begin, just a quick recap. This is going over Jacob and his actual 4 wives. It wasn't just Leia and Rachel. He actually had 2 handmaids, Bilhah and Salagia. I just forgot her name. Hold on. Zilpah. Those are the handmaids. So Jacob actually had 4 wives. Just a further indication that multiple wives is not unlawful in the eyes of the Lord. So we're going to be going over verse 23. The sons of Leia. Reuben, who are the so-called Seminole Indians. Jacob's firstborn. And Simeon, who are the so-called Dominicans. Levi, as I went over before, that Moses is from the tribe of Levi, who are the so-called Haitians today. And Judah, so-called Negroes, going back to what I was talking about before, and the Zondervan's Bible Dictionary, where it says in there that Ham is the progenitor of the dark races, but not the Negroes. See? So not of Judah. Judites are not African. And Issachar, who's Issachar? So-called Mexicans today. And Zebulon. Zebulon is from Guatemala to Panama. So Salvadorian, Honduran. The sons of Rachel, Joseph and Benjamin. Who's Joseph though? We'll get into that in a second. But Benjamin or Benyamin in the Hebrew, who are your so-called West Indians today. You know, your Trinidad, Jamaica. The sons of Bilhah, Rachel's handmaid, Dan and Naphtali. Naphtali would be your so-called South American, Argentinian, Brazil, Chilean, that of that sort. And the sons of Zilpah, Leia's handmaid, Gad, your so-called native Indians today, and Asher. These are the sons of Jacob. Salakia, hold on. Asher, who would be the so-called Colombians today. Now, these are Jacob's sons. This is just one indication of Hispanics and natives are also God's chosen people. We have this thing of colorism. We have a lot of colorism in our nation, man. And because we're so destroyed and confused, we don't think our lighter skinned brothers and sisters are the same as us. For example, I'm just going off the top of my head, just me personally, most of I use Asher, for example. Most of the Colombians that I know personally are of a lighter skin tone. So a lot of people think, oh, well, they're white, or they're Spaniard. A lot of Hispanics like to claim that they're Spaniard, when actually, no, you are an Israelite. If your father is an Israelite, you are an Israelite. If your father is some Edomite or whatever, you're not one of God's chosen people. You can go to Numbers chapter 1, go to verse 8. It talks about how we identified our members, that you are from the seed of your father. So, but going back to, Asher. A lot of people from Asher that I know personally, there are dark-skinned Colombians, but most of the ones that I know personally are of a lighter skin tone. So it's very easy for somebody who is not properly educated, as a lot of our brothers and sisters are today, to think that, oh, well, they're not one of us. Same things that they try to say about Puerto Ricans. They try to say that about Gadites, who are the so-called native Indians today. They try to say that about a lot of the northern tribes. So that's what they try to say about our people. Now, the thing is, we're missing two tribes. Now, this says Joseph and Dan, right? But according to the 12 tribes chart, there's two other tribes that I didn't name. And that would be Ephraim and Manasseh. So where are they? We're going to go over it. We're going to go to the book of Genesis, chapter 48. Just in case anybody out there tries to argue that Manassites and Ephraimites are not God's chosen people, who would be Ephraim will be the so-called Puerto Ricans today, and Manasseh are the so-called Cubans today. So we're going to be going over Genesis chapter 48, verse 1. We'll start at verse 1. And it came to pass after these things that one told Joseph, behold, thy father is sick. And he took him his two sons, Manasseh and Ephraim. Salakia, just one moment. Salakia, Manasseh and Ephraim. Verse 2. And one told Jacob and said, behold, thy son Joseph cometh unto thee, and Israel strengtheneth himself and sat upon the bed. Israel meaning Jacob. And Jacob said unto Joseph, God Almighty appeared unto me at Luz in the land of Canaan, and blessed me, and said unto me, behold, I will make thee fruitful and multiply thee, and I will make of thee a multitude of people, and will give this land to thy seed after thee for an everlasting possession. And now thy two sons, Ephraim and Manasseh, which were born unto thee in the land of Egypt, they're not Egyptian, because remember, this is Joseph, who is Jacob's son. So this would make Ephraim and Manasseh his grandsons. So I want to clear that up. Ephraim and Manasseh are not Egyptians. They were just born in the land of Egypt. Before I came unto thee into Egypt are mine, as Reuben and Simeon, going over Reuben and Simeon, the Seminole Indians and the Dominicans today, his other sons. They shall be mine. He's claiming them to be his. And thy issue, which thou begettest after thee, shall be thine, and shall be called after the name of their brethren in their inheritance. And as for me, which I came from Padan, Rachel died by me in the land of Canaan in the way, when yet there was but a little way to come unto Ephrath, and I buried her there in the way of Ephrath, the same in Bethlehem. And Israel beheld Joseph's sons, and said, Who are these? And Joseph said unto his father, These are my sons, whom God hath given me in this place. And he said, Bring them, I pray thee, unto me, and I will bless them. Now the eyes of Israel were dim for age, so that he could not see. And he brought them near unto him, and kissed them and embraced them. Verse 11. And Israel said unto Joseph, I had not thought to see thy face, and lo, God hath showed me also thy seed. And Joseph brought them out from between his knees, and bowed himself with his face to the earth. And Joseph took them both, Ephraim in his right hand toward Israel's left hand, and Manasseh in his left hand toward Israel's right hand, and brought them near unto him. And Israel stretched out his right hand and laid it upon Ephraim's head, who was the younger, and his left hand on Manasseh's head, guiding his hands wittingly, for Manasseh was the firstborn. And he blessed Joseph and said, God, before whom my fathers Abraham and Isaac did walk, the God which fed me all my life long unto this day, the angel which redeemed me from all evil, bless the lads, and let my name be named on them in the name of my fathers Abraham and Isaac, and let them grow into a multitude in the midst of the earth. And when Joseph saw that his father laid his right hand upon the head of Ephraim, because Ephraim was the younger, it displeased him. Why? Let's go over it. And he held his father's hand to remove it from Ephraim's head unto Manasseh's head. And Joseph said unto his father, Not so, my father, for this is the firstborn. Talking about Manasseh. He wanted Manasseh because traditionally, okay, you can actually compare this to Isaac. Isaac when Esau and Jacob were born. Originally, Isaac wanted to give Esau the blessing, but it was already prophesied beforehand that that the older shall serve the younger. Who was the firstborn? It was actually Esau. They were twins, fraternal twins, you could say, because they looked completely different. But Esau was the firstborn. So in his mind, he wanted to bless Esau because Esau was the firstborn. He was a mighty hunter. You got to think like, okay, look at it as you're a father and you got a son who's really good at sports. General Muhammad actually went over this not too long ago. And it makes you feel real masculine. Like, that's my boy right there. He's the captain of the football team, or he's a boxer, or, something like that, right? Makes you feel very proud. While Jacob, well, he was kind of a mama's boy. He said that he was a plain man. He was just chilling, kind of like how Israel is. We just be chilling, honestly, until we get bothered by our oppressor. But the point is, he wanted to bless Esau, but it was already prophesied that Jacob was going to be the one that was going to be blessed. So it's common custom, wrong word. It's common custom or tradition to bless the older before the younger, like an inheritance. It's like today, when somebody passes away, even other nations do this. When they're about to pass away, they give their inheritance to the firstborn, usually the oldest. So that's why Joseph was a little displeased, because he was blessing Ephraim first, but he wanted Manasseh to be blessed first. That's why he was trying to guide Manasseh to his right hand. But then it says in verse 19, and his father refused and said, I know it, my son. I know it. He also shall become a people, and he also shall be great. But truly his younger brother shall be greater than he, and his seed shall become a multitude of nations. And he blessed them that day, saying, in thee shall Israel bless, saying, God make thee as Ephraim and as Manasseh. And he set Ephraim before Manasseh. The Ephraimites and the Manassites today, the so-called Puerto Ricans and Cubans today. So-called Black and Hispanics and Native Indians are God's chosen people. You're not African. Now, I went over a little bit about how Judites, the so-called Negroes today, even though we might have dark skin, we are not African. I'm going to read just a little bit about the northern tribes. But I'm actually going to go over it in the Transatlantic slave trade. Just to give you a quick little history lesson, to give you further indication that so-called Hispanics are God's chosen people. They're not Spaniard. I want to make that very clear. So I'm going to be reading out of the Transatlantic slave trade. I'm going to be going over a few notes. So it actually has a chapter. It says, Chapter 2, The Transatlantic Pioneers, the Roles of Portugal and Spain. Now, I'm going to be going over, actually, I'll go over this. It says right here, on page 15, towards the bottom, it says, by the 1500s, Portugal established itself in modern-day Brazil. What do Brazilians speak today? Portuguese. That's why. Because they were conquered and brought over by the Portuguese, who's just another oppressor. That's all it is. While the Spaniards established itself, the first colonies on the island of Hispaniola in the Caribbean. Even the term, before I continue, even the term Hispanic, that's why we say so-called, right? Hispanic comes from a European nation. Even the language, right? Spanish. Where's Spanish from? Europe. You can go to Spain. What do they speak in Spain? Spanish. I've been to Italy. In Italy, they speak Spanish. It's nothing but another European language. So-called Mexicans, Puerto Ricans, Cubans, Colombians, Hondurans, Salvadorians. Spanish is not your native language. No, you were conquered by Spaniards. And for our Brazilian, South American brothers and sisters who are from the tribe of Naphtali, you were conquered by the Portuguese. It's no different than the so-called Negroes. What do I speak? Other than Hebrew, obviously. I speak English. Does that make me English? No, I'm not English. I'm not going to go over my slave last name, but I did some research a while back, and my slave last name is actually British. Because a lot of times throughout slavery, not even a lot of times, throughout slavery in general, they got rid of our names, and we were forced to take the names of our slave masters. Y'all have heard a lot of names like Smith, Williams, Johnson, Williamson. All those are nothing but the names of our slave masters from the past that got passed down. It's just like how they try to tell you that you're African American. They try to wipe out your lineage and who you really are because they don't want you to know who you really are. Okay? I'm not English. It's because I speak the language doesn't make me English. Just like names like Rodriguez, Lopez, Cortez, Rosario, Santa Cruz, all those names, those are nothing but Spaniard last names that were given to you by your oppressors. You had Hebrew names before that. You spoke Hebrew before that. Native Indians, it was actually found not that long ago that there was a stone tablet with ancient Hebrew writing on it. Further indication that the tribe of Gad, who are the Native Indians today, are God's chosen people and that they are also Hebrews. You get my point? But let's continue. I'm going to read a few more notes. It also says that the Portuguese slave merchants traded about 81,000 people. Out of them, roughly 60,000 went to Europe. About 3,500 were sent to Sao Tome. Now I'm going to go, says the end of the 15th century also brought another important development. Spain and Portugal signed a treaty in 1494, dividing the sphere of their influence and rights in the discovered and yet undiscovered lands. The Treaty of, Salaki if I butcher the name, Tordesillas, as it became known, gave the Portuguese rights on the African coast as well as on the land, as well as on any land up to 370 leagues west of Cape Verde Islands. The land was dubbed Brazil, further indication that the so-called Brazilians today were conquered by the Portuguese. That's why they speak Portuguese down there. But let's keep going. Notice how I said earlier that so-called Hispanics today were also in, I want to make this clear, so-called Hispanics, because you're not Hispanic, that's why we say so-called, you were colonized just like your black brothers and sisters, just like the Native Indian brothers and sisters. Don't believe me? Let's read it. This is the Transatlantic Slave Trade, page 18. Spanish colonial empire in the, start from the beginning. In contrast, the entire Spanish colonial empire in the Americas, including modern-day Mexico, Jamaica, Cuba, and many other islands, imported roughly the same number of slaves as Sao Tome. You were enslaved along with us. That are not good enough for you. During the transatlantic slave trade, everybody loves to talk about Christopher Columbus, who was a disgusting Edomite. It was roughly around 1,100 Taino and Arawak Indian men and women that were first captured. This is before they even got to the so-called black brothers and sisters. 1,100, right? And it says that only 800 of them actually made the voyage. 300 of them died along the voyage. Hispanics were lynched just like black people. They were enslaved just like black people. Cubans, Puerto Ricans, Dominicans, the list goes on. All 12 tribes were enslaved. Hispanics are not Spaniard. You're not Spaniard. Just like how they try to push that agenda that blacks are African, they do the same thing with our Hispanic and Native Indian brothers and sisters too. They try to tell you that, oh, well, you're Spaniard. And the sad part is that both the southern and the northern tribes, right? We do the same thing. Blacks are so ashamed of who we are today that we have to cling on to something. So when we get told, oh yeah, you were Egyptian, you lived in a great nation, we cling on to it because we don't know anything else. We think, oh, I'm Egyptian, so I was kings and queens, and they try to wear the ankh and all that stuff. When Black Panther first came out, everybody, all the so-called Judites, try to run over there dressing like Africans and whatnot. It's no different than how Hispanics today try to claim that they're Spaniard, because a lot of their history got wiped out. And in today's society, the whiter you are, the better you are. So a lot of our Hispanic brothers and sisters, sadly, they are also ashamed of themselves. They're hated on, just like how we are. So what do? They cling on to, oh, well, I'm Spaniard. That's why you see a lot of colorism between the tribes. A lot of times you'll see, not just with Hispanics, black people too. You'll see it where you'll see lighter skinned Hispanics get treated better in certain parts of the country because they look more European. Going back to when I was talking about Asher, at least the ones that I know, not saying that, I want to make sure I'm not offending anybody. I'm not saying that all Colombians are light skinned. I'm saying the ones that I know personally are of a lighter skin tone, and from far away, some people might mistake them for being whites today. So they get treated better. So they shun the rest of their tribes, just like blacks today. You got light skin versus dark skin. They use that against us all the time. That's why it's important to know who you are as a people. That's why it's so, so, so important. Because when you know who you are, now you have the tools to fight back. And when I say fight back, I don't mean go out there and get a machete and start chopping Edomite heads off. That's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is now okay, this is my actual heritage. This is who I am as a people. I know that this is wrong. You start steering away from pagan holidays. You stop smoking weed, getting tattoos, giving into heathen customs. That's the big one right there. Because the Lord told you, don't hearken onto the way of the heathen Africans. You get my point? Just like how the Lord said in Exodus that there shall be no other gods before me. Egyptians got they got a whole bunch of different gods. They got Anubis, Ra, all these other crazy things. Well, that's even further indication that we are not the same people. We're not. And why would you want to be? Why would you want to be a Spaniard? Spaniards did horrible things to us. The Portuguese did horrible things. The Dutch, the French, the British, they all enslaved us. Why would you want to be an African? Africans held us in bondage before the Edomites did. You get my point? Why would you want to be like your oppressor? You got to get out of that slave mentality. And that's the problem with our so-called Black, Hispanic, and Native Indian brothers and sisters today, man. So I just went over today to even further indication that, first and foremost, we as a nation, so-called Blacks and Hispanics, are the same people. Blacks are not African. We're not Egyptian. Okay? We just read that. So anybody wants to argue, you put this in your notes. You can go to Exodus chapter 11, verse 7. We talked about the sons of Noah, Shem, Ham, and Japheth, which was the book of Genesis, chapter 9, started at verse 18. I really encourage y'all to get up on y'all reading. You can read about the transatlantic slave trade. You can read about from Babylon to Timbuktu. Actually, even further indication, if I could real quick, a little promo for Captain Katazar, who made a book, How Issachar is the son of Jacob, giving even further indication that Issacharites, who are the so-called Mexicans today, are also God's chosen people. So now, if there aren't any questions, let me just check real quick. No questions. I hope this class could further educate any new coming brothers and sisters, know of your actual lineage, who you are as a people. But if there are no questions, I'll be closing the class. All right, with that, I'll be closing the class. So with that, I'm Majim, just me up here. Leia Sharala. Most High in Christ, I'm glad you learned. All right. Amadim upon Yah Hakwadam, which means to stand and face the east. We're getting started with the Lord's Prayer in the Hebrew. Abanawa, Shabbat Shemayim, Kodash, Haya, Shemka, Yahweh, Malakavka, Taba'ah, Batzaka, Haya, Aisha, Ba'arataza, Kawa, Haya, Bashemayim, Latalanawa, Lakam, Ko, Yawam, Wasalaknawa, Kabawatnawa, Kasalaknawa, Kabawathinawa, Wala'a, Tabayanawa, Banasaiwan, Abal, Habashainawa, Mayan, Rai, Kaya, Laka, Hamalakwath, Ba'ala, Ba'ataparath, Labalumium, Amun. This is the Lord's Prayer in the English. Our Father, which art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Yahweh, thy kingdom come, thy will be done, in earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our debts, as we forgive our debtors. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, and the power, and the glory, forever. So be it. Mixed up. Hakak, which is the power in the Hebrew. Yahweh, Ba'ashem, Yahushai, Babakasha, Latan Lanawa, Hakak, Daraba'ah, Call, Makala, Wakal, Matawa, Hakak, Latahar, Ha, Matazariah, Hakak, Lahaquayim, Hamathim, Hakak, Isle, Rakawath, Latama'ala, Lagarshun, Ba'ashem, Yahushai, Thawada, Amun. Now in the English, Yahweh, in the name of Yahushai, please give us the power to heal all manner of sickness and all manner of disease, the power to cleanse the lepers, the power to raise the dead against the power against unclean spirits, to cast them out in the name of Yahushai. Thank you, so be it. The blessings in the Hebrew, Barakatah Yahweh, Wa Yahushai, Wa Mayaka Allah, Wa Alahayim, Batzab Ya'ah, Alawap Yahana, Ha Alawapyim, Ha Sarunyan, Ha Kwatazayoyin, Ha Kayayoyin, Wa Ha Akwathin, Yahweh, Ba'ashem, Yahushai, Thawada, Amun. Now in the English, bless you Yahweh and Yahushai, and Michael, and the angels, commanding General Yahana, the generals, the captains, the officers, the troopers, and the sisters. Yahweh, in the name of Yahushai, thank you, so be it. Psalms 121, the Hebrew, Asha'ah, Ayunya, All, Hahoyim, Ma'ayan, Yaba'ah, Izoya, Ma'aim, Yahweh, Aisha, Shemayim, Wa'aratazah, Oyatun, Lamawat, Regalka, Oyatun, Yanawam, Shemarka, Hana, La'ah, Yanawam, Wala'ah, Yayashun, Shawamar, Yasharala, Yahweh, Shemarka, Yahweh, Tazalka, Oyad, Yanyamka, Yawamam, Hashamash, La'ah, Yakaka, Wairach, Balayala, Yahweh, Yashamarka, Makal, Rai, Yashamar, Athnapashka, Yahweh, Yashamar, Taza'afka, Obu'afka, Maita, Wa'ai, Awalam. Now in the English, I will lift up my eyes into the hills. From whence cometh my help? My help cometh from the Lord, which made heaven and earth. He will not suffer thy foot to be moved. He that keepeth thee will not slumber. Behold, he that keepeth Israel shall neither slumber nor sleep. The Lord is thy keeper. The Lord is thy shade upon thy right hand. The sun shall not smite thee by day, nor the moon by night. The Lord shall preserve thee from all evil. He shall preserve thy soul. The Lord shall preserve thy going out and thy coming in, from this time forth and even forevermore. Psalms 83 in the Hebrew. Alahayim, all, Damaya, Laka, all, Takarash, Wa'al, Tashakwat, all, Kaya, Hana, Awayebyaka, Yahama, Yawan, Ra'ash, Ayel, Amaka, Ya'ayamwa, Sawada, Waida, Yatazawa, Ayel, Tazapawanyaka, Amarwa, Lakawa, Wanakakinam, Magoya, Wala'a, Yazakar, Shum, Yasharala, Awada, Kaya, Natazawa, Laba, Yakadwa, Ayaka, Baryath, Yakarathwa, Ahoya, Adawam, Salakia, Washama'alim, Mawa'aba, Wahagoyim, Gabal, Wa'amawan, Wa'amalak, Palashath, Amishabia, Tazawar, Gum, Ashabor, Nalawa, Aimum, Hayawa, Zarawai, Labunya, Lawat, Salah, Aisha, Lahum, Kamudyim, Kasaya, Sara'a, Kayubyan, Manakor, Koyashwan, Mashamanwa, Bayan, Dara, Hayawa, Daman, La Dama, Shayadama, Nada, Yamawa, Kairab, Wakazaaba, Wakazabak, Wakatazor, Manai, Ko, Nasayakamwa, Ashar, Amarwa, Nayarsha, Lanawa, Ath, Naawath, Alahayim, Alahaya, Shayadama, Kagogala, Kakwash, Lapunya, Rauka'a, Ka'ash, Dabaira, Ya'ira, Wa, Kalahaba, Dalahat, Haryum, Kung, Daradama, Basairaka, Wabasa, Wapafka, Dabalam, Mala'a, Panyahum, Walawan, Waya, Bekwashwa, Shimka, Yahawa, Yabashwa, Waya, Bahawa, Ayai, Waya, Kaparwa, Waya, Abadwa, Kai Slakia, Waya, Daiwa, Kaya, Ada, Shimka, Yahawa, Labadka, Ayawan, Alcohol, Haratiza. Salakia. Psalms 83 in the English. Keep not thy silence, O God. Hold not thy peace, and be not still, O God. For lo, thine enemies make atonement, and they that hate thee have lifted up the head. They have taken crafty counsel against thy people, and consulted against thy hidden ones. They have said, Come, and let us cut them off from being a nation, that the name of Israel shall be no more remembrance. For they have consulted together with one consent. They are confederate against thee, the tabernacles of Edom, and the Ishmaelites of Moab, and the Hagarenes, Gabal, and Ammon, and Amalek, the Philistines, with the inhabitants of Tyre. So also is joined with them. They have opened the children of Lot, Salah. Do unto them as unto the Midianites, as to Sisera, as to Jabin, at the brook of Kison, which perished at Endor. They became as dung for the earth. Make their nobles like Oreb, and like Zaid. Yea, all their princes as Zabat, and as Armuna, who said, Let us take to ourselves the houses of God in possession. O my God, make them like a wheel, as a stubble before the wind, as the fire burneth the wood, and as the flame setteth the mountains on fire. So persecute them with thy tempests, and make them afraid with thy storm. Fill their faces with shame, that they may seek thy name. O Lord, let them be confounded and troubled forever. Yea, let them be put to shame and perish, that men may know that thou, whose name alone is Yahweh, art the most high over all the earth. Shalom Israel, the water for tuning in.